Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great.
Okay.
What kind
Yeah,
of
I
hat
can
you
hear you
got
now.
there? What's on your hat? Is this Costa Rica?
Oh, it just says Costa. It's a fishing brand, like
Oh, okay.
fishing
You're a
equipment,
fisher?
fishing rods, things like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. You're a fisherman?
I wouldn't say that I'm a good one. I live here in North Carolina in my home. I live on a lake, so my son and I fish, and the hat came with the
Fantastic.
some of the rods and the stuff we bought. I'm not. Yeah, I do fish. I would not call myself a fisherman.
My mother's side of the family, they're all fishermen. They live right off the coast of a sea. I never I've caught a twig once in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, fishing it to me is one of the things that it's the just doing it is the enjoyable part.
Yeah. So just to be clear, I want to take an opportunity to steel man your argument. Of course, I'm sure you know that there's been a lot of detractors. Of course, GHF has made some accusations against your claim, and you've been very persistent in your effort to ensure that your voice is heard. And I think that's really admirable, and it's considering the circumstances, it's extremely important. So I appreciate you doing that, and I can't imagine it being an easy road for you, considering your history in the military in the United States, and being just getting dragged into probably the most significant circumstances or situation in the world in present day. Not to say that there isn't other things happening in the world, but it certainly is a catastrophe to say the least. And it just happens that you were involved in it as well. So in order to do that, I thought it would be important for people to get to know you a little bit about your history and a little bit about your life and how you ended up in the military in the first place, to get an idea of your trajectory in your life. Did I know that it's been repeatedly said that you have 25 years experience in the military. What did you do before then?
The military,
Yeah.
I was in high school. I joined the army at 17,
So you were probably born sometime in the early 80s then.
1981.
Did you have a family history in the military?
My mother served in the Air Force in the medical field, and my father served in the Navy the in electronic aircraft electronics.
Okay. That's okay. So it runs in the family, actually. I'm sure they must have served in the previous U.S. wars at some point, correct?
My father is a veteran of the Vietnam conflict, as a Navy crewman flying from aircraft carriers and conducting surveillance. He was not a pilot. He was a crewman.
Right.
My mother, younger younger than my father, so younger than the Vietnam generation, but served through the Cold War. My mother's side of the family, my uncles were also served in the army and fought in the Gulf War. My wife is a retired army officer. Her father served in the military, so
Wow.
service in the military and in Army, Navy, Air Force is all kind of a family affair, I would say.
I had a question of, well, what did your family think about you joining the military? I guess they were kind of expected at that point.
I wouldn't say expected. My parents did not serve a military career. They didn't serve, 20 years or were career military. They served an initial tour of duty, an initial enlistment or contract. So they were not career military. Growing up, I was never pressured or encouraged in any way to
Hmm.
join the military. I was always encouraged in growing up to, you know, pursue what I wanted to pursue as long as it was something that was responsible and and a productive member of society. I was never pressured or kind of steered towards the military.
Very well. And yet you still chose the military. How does that, I grew up, my father, he's a veteran from the Iran-Iraq War. He was a Tomcat pilot during the 8-year conflict. And it definitely skipped a generation. Growing up, seeing I was born immediately following the end of the war. But I grew up in the rubble of what was left in certain areas. And some areas were kind of left as a reminder to the country of what they had endured. And that definitely steered me away, if anything, from wanting to participate in that. But yeah, I think it's really admirable to put your life, not just your well-being, but also to create a path towards your nation and your country, and whatever philosophy that follows that, to be able to participate in the Air Force or the military or what have you. Okay, so you joined at 17 years old. That's very young. So you don't really have much experience doing anything else other than being in the military, no?
That's exactly correct.
Yeah. So I tried to find some information just from your career. There was not uh, too much. I mean, the U.S. military is such a huge institution. I don't expect them to keep meticulous records on every single personnel. But I was lucky enough to find some information about your background. The first thing that came up is it almost looked like an advertisement from 2005, I believe, of you encountering an IED, and it's almost like a commercial for protective eye gear, and you can see a piece of shrapnel in your face. Is
Yeah, in fact, um, yeah, in fact, I still have those. I still have these from 21 years ago, 20 years ago. Yep.
unbelievable. Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I thought Mr. Aguilar is probably one of those people who is safe to a fault, and he's always bugging people about your safety gear before you deploy. I work in construction for a really long time. I'm the same. After a couple of small injuries, I just put up with it. I'm like, it's not worth it so it's really important to maintain that safety standard. Is that the incident where you that led to you receiving your Purple Heart?
No, surprisingly, the incident that led to me receiving my Purple Heart was a few days later. That was a very heightened time of violence in Mosul.
Right.
So it was actually a few days later in the early morning hours of the day, 2 in the morning, in that same neighborhood though, in that same area of Mosul that I received my Purple Heart.
Was that can you describe the incident at all in any detail?
Yes, my platoon was conducting a night patrol. We all had each of the platoons in the company in the battalion um, had rotations, if you will, like a shift, where we were constantly conducting patrols in the city to maintain presence, and we typically had 2 6-hour patrols every day that were broken up with, a return to base. Excuse me, a return to base to refuel, refit, and then we'd go back out again. So pretty much our lives were just being on patrol or preparing for the next patrol. And this particular patrol was one of our night patrol that was from 10 p.m. to 4 in the morning in northern Mosul in the Al Qadamiyah neighborhood, which was in the eastern outskirts of the eastern bank of Mosul. Mosul is split in half by the by the Tigris River. So you have the West Bank, the Old City, and the East Bank, the Nineveh the Nineveh area, and we were on a patrol, and one of our adjacent units, a unit that was not part of our battalion, but was operating
Forgive
in the
me,
area as well.
you were deployed with the 172nd Striker Battalion, correct?
Brigade. Yep,
Brigade, excuse me.
yep. Second Battalion of the First Infantry Regiment. That was my battalion under that brigade. So the an adjacent unit that was operating in that same area had gotten into a an ambush, a firefight with the U.S. unit, the Iraqi police, and an insurgent cell in Kadamia, and they were ambushed, and they called on the radio for reinforcements for backup. We were already out in the area, and we weren't far away, so we responded to it. And when I dismounted from my striker vehicle to go to get on the ground to link up with the other American that was in charge of this adjacent unit, we we were under fire, and were moving to get cover, to get protection from the machine gun fire, and I was shot in the leg and the hand.
Ooh,
He was killed. My radio telephone operator, my RTO, the guy that is assigned to me to control the radio and assist the commander, which was me, in communicating on the radio. He was killed. He was shot in the throat, and he died. Both Tony Yost, the other American that was killed, and my RTO, both of them received the Distinguished Service Cross for that incident.
that is such an extreme experience that must have a lasting impact on your life, on your
Well, I
career.
had been struck by many IEDs. That was not the first, and it certainly was not the last. That one was particularly large, and the way that that one had been in place was particularly dangerous. It was in a culvert,
Hmm,
which was the intent was to explode underneath the vehicle.
right.
And when it was detonated, in that particular incident, the driver of my striker vehicle, a very astute, observant young man, 19 years old, right out of basic training,
Wow.
deployed to combat. He noticed a wire that was running from a pile of debris that was running underneath the culvert, and just out of instinct or out of intuition, turned the vehicle to try to turn away from it, and we couldn't get out of the way from it. It detonated, but um, because of his wherewithal, avoided it detonating underneath us, which would have killed us all. It detonated just to the side of us, and that's why I got the debris and everything that came up, because I was standing up. I was standing up in the vehicle out of the hatch in a position to where I could see, since we're in a strikers are a very large vehicle, and when you're driving in a very condensed urban area like a neighborhood, you want to make sure that someone is out looking, so you're helping direct the vehicle. It's very difficult to direct the vehicle from inside of it when you can't see around you. So in that instance, I was up out of the vehicle, and he saw it, turned, and so if he had not made that decision, we would have he and I and my gunner, my vehicle commander next to me, in the striker, we would have been dead without a question. It would have blown the entire front of the vehicle off. It was a very large IED, but that was not the first, and it was not the last. I've also been struck by VB IEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, where
Like a car bomb?
cars are loaded with munitions and driven into your convoy or driven into your
Right.
patrol. And yeah, it's not just the noise and the boom and the explosion and the debris and the chaos and the confusion. It's also the overpressure of an explosion when you're that close to it is
Yeah.
really takes a toll on you. The overpressure of those things over time really ring your bell over time. Yeah, so the IED threat that we faced throughout those years in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's not only the explosion in terms of the
Yeah.
the explosive kinetic nature of an explosion, but also the overpressure really messes you up.
How long do you think you spent in Iraq and in Afghanistan separately? Because you spent quite a
Well,
few
let's
years.
see. I was in Afghanistan separate. So let's see, 9 to 10, that was a year. And I went back again, another deployment that was 6 months. So 18 months. And about probably 2 years that I've spent in Afghanistan and about 3 years that I spent in Iraq.
Oh, okay, that's a lot shorter than I thought because it wasn't really clear how long you spent there. I thought you were there
Well, because I was deployed. So I had my combat tours, my combat rotations are to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Tajikistan, and the southern Philippines in the war against the conflict against the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. So my combat deployments weren't just focused in one specific area. I was deployed all over the world. So um,
I did. Maybe you can help me understand the. I know there is, of course, in the military, there's ranks, and then there are roles as well. The ranks, it's kind of gamified. If you reach a certain rank, new roles are unlocked for you and become accessible. I don't know if you. I don't know if each personnel, how much choice they have in the direction they take, or if personnel are recruited to join or are beckoned to enter certain roles. And 2 years later, I found a picture of you with another gentleman, and I forget his name. I had it written down somewhere, where you guys were doing a training exercise, I think in California, or maybe it was in Georgia. No, that's later on.
Fort Benning, Georgia,
That correct. Okay. That was in 2007 and you were doing
2008.
2008. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Maybe I have got the image
the
wrong.
first one what you're talking about is the U.S. Army Best Ranger competition, and I
No,
competed
no,
that in
that's too.
2008, 2009,
Oh, okay.
2012, and 17. So I competed it more than once, but the
I do
the
want to
early
come back
one,
to
the
that.
first time I competed was 2008.
But in 2007, there was an image I found. You guys were doing a training exercise, and I'd never heard of this detachment before. It's called the Mobilized Public Affairs
Oh,
Detachment.
that's not me. That is another Lieutenant Anthony Aguilar, who was
Oh,
an Army
really?
public affairs officer. That was not me.
Oh, okay. So you don't have any. Okay, because I'd seen that he was a broadcast officer,
Yeah,
and
that
it's
is a different Lieutenant Anthony Aguilar. That's not me.
pretty common name actually. I've seen quite a few of them around. And then in 2015, this was the first time I saw that you'd gained the rank of lieutenant colonel. And I think that you never became captain. I mean, you retired before becoming captain. Is that correct?
Well, no. So in the Army, the ranks go second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, and then colonel. So
Oh,
I
I had it
retired before I became a colonel.
colonel. Forgive me. So in 2015, there was an interesting image which was actually it was interesting for me because it's an image of you in Tajikistan and you're in a class and it's filled with young men and they all seem pretty happy to see you. And it's not an image I see of U.S. Military personnel, especially not in Asia. It's usually I always suspect that you would have a different reception. So can you explain a little bit about what oh, I just want to add this is something I couldn't figure out.
That was in Dushanbe,
Yes,
Tajikistan.
that's right.
That was there's another picture from that same time period where I'm shaking hands with the
That's
Secretary
right.
of State. But the picture you're referring to in the classroom that seemed with the Tajik teenagers, it wasn't all men. There were some women, but that was a community center in down in Dushanbe, which is the capital of Tajikistan, that
Which still
was
exists, by
funded.
the way.
What's that?
It still exists. To my knowledge, it's still functioning
Oh yeah,
among other.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That community center was built and established in coordination with USAID and the Tajik government. as a resource center for school age children to have a place to do homework, to access resources, computers,
Great.
basically like a resource center you would find in the United States. Just the idea was developed between educators in USAID and educators in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, to have a place where these kids could have a place to um, basically to meet, to be, as you know, as kids of their age, play video games,
Yeah.
do
Believe me,
homework,
I
you know.
understand that. I spent the majority of my, early teen years right after school, straight to the community center, to the youth center. Had
Yeah, I did too as a kid. It was
Yeah,
something that was just part of daily life. You know, if you're once you got out of school, you know, depending on what your activities were, if you played sports or if it was the off season, you know, you would go to the rec center, right? That's what we called it.
that's
The
right.
go to the rec center
Yeah,
and hang out with your friends and play basketball or play sports or hang out. It was a good way to keep you from getting in trouble. I mean,
yeah,
that's why it was built and developed, because ISIS had been recruiting pretty heavily among that population.
right.
And really, we were finding that it wasn't a matter of being um, radicalized. It was a matter of just access to influencing people. So we set these up in a way to help provide an alternative. And in that particular picture, because my when I was in Tajikistan, I was the commander of the Special Operations Task Force for Central Asia.
Hmm.
So I was headquartered, if you will, in Dushanbe, and we worked very, very closely with the State Department in efforts to um, provide opportunities and options to Tajiks in employment, in schooling, and education, that was an alternative to wanting to join ISIS, or an alternative to being influenced by ISIS. And I would go to that community center every day, every afternoon. I would go there and just talk with people and be present, and
Hmm.
I really got to know them all very, very well. I got to know them very close in terms of, that um what jobs they wanted to get when they got out of when they graduated from high school. Where with many of them, I'd been to their homes with their families for dinner or for a meal, and really got to know them quite well. So yeah, that's what that picture is from.
Uh, in her book, she had a correspondence with some people in Yemen, and one of the chapters opens with an excerpt from that letter, where the Yemeni woman, and this was a revelation for me of understanding what the situation is for youth there, and she was explaining how. Well, what do you expect when you destroy the schools, the businesses, everything that a child aspires to attend in their life? When you don't have this infrastructure, when it's destroyed, and somebody comes and offers them money and fraternity and everything that they're looking for in those institutions, like somebody recruiting from Daesh or whatever, when the kid has no sense of future, that's it's an easy decision for them to make to want
And
to.
this is not something that is foreign in terms of an idea or a concept to any American. I mean, look at our,
Yeah,
gangs in the United States. That's
for
exactly
sure.
the same premise, that children, young men, young women, are recruited into gangs. A sense of belonging, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of a tribe, a sense of belonging to something. And if that's not being provided through other means, through either school or family, or if there's dynamics where that individual feels like, well, especially at that teenage age, right, where you're naturally inclined to want to rebel anyway.
Yeah,
It's an open door. So uh, especially in war-torn areas like
for sure.
Afghanistan and Iraq and Tajikistan and the southern Philippines, where there's limited options. And it should be no surprise to any American, or to anyone really, that when you look at like, for example, what's happening in Gaza, that what what's happening is, it's just that this war, which is not even a war anymore, it's just annihilation, is that it's sowing the seeds for a future Hamas or a future insurgency or a future terrorist organization. And when you think about it, is that, if I'm sitting here at home in the United States, here in North Carolina, and a missile blows up my neighbor's house, and my neighbor, for all intents and purposes, was a good guy, good family, knew him for many, many years, and a missile blows up my neighbor's house and kills his entire family, or members of my family have been killed, or my house has been destroyed and I'm living in a tent somewhere. Of course I would take up arms, and of course I would be angry toward the people that did that. Why would anyone think otherwise?
I'm sorry, before moving on to Gaza, I just had one more question. I was trying to find your position in Tajikistan. I was having a hard time figuring out who preceded you and who succeeded you. It doesn't seem like the position. I'm not sure if they've changed the name of it, the title of your position as Commander of Special Operations of Central Asia.
So the position title was commander of the Special Operations Command Central,
Yes.
SOCCENT, forward element for Central Asian states. The individual that preceded me was
You muted.
how about now?
That's perfect. Sorry about that.
Okay.
If you could go back
So
like 30 seconds.
for the individual that preceded me, he left a few months before I assumed that role. That they were then seeking another officer to put in that role, and I was chosen for it. And then the person that succeeded me, I don't know who that was, because there was a transition between Central Command and European Command.
Hmm.
If the Central Asian states would fall under EUCOM or they would fall under Central. And
Gotcha.
I had been there for a year and couldn't stay any longer. So I don't know what happened with the position after me. But while I was there, my official title was the commander of the
Yes.
Central Special Operations Command Central Forward Element for the Central Asian states.
Right. And that culminates. There's a picture of you with John Kerry as well. I guess
Yep.
that must have been near the end of that tenure you had there.
Yep.
Okay, so I suspect there was some shuffling and restructuring of how these centers are working, and the title is likely changed. Okay.
Most likely. Yeah.
You mentioned that you'd participated in the David E. Grant Jr. competitions before, and it was the first time I saw uh, a different title before your name, because I know you've mentioned or it's been said that you are part of the Special Operations Forces, but in this picture they also give you the title of U.S. Army Ranger. Does that make you dual qualified?
Well, so I served in the Army as an officer. Officers officers, when we enter the service, we are commissioned. We're commissioned into a branch. As an officer, I did not have a military occupational specialty. I had a branch. When I first joined the Army, officers cannot join into special forces or special operations branch. We have to branch into a basic branch first. So the basic branches are infantry, armor, aviation, artillery, communications, intelligence. There's 16 of them. When I was commissioned from West Point, I was commissioned as an infantry officer and went to Ranger School and was a Ranger. So I was a qualified Ranger. And then as a captain, I then submitted my application to try out to be selected for special forces, and I was. So then as an officer, once you complete the special forces qualification course and earn your green beret, you are then your branch then changes. You are then changed to becoming a special forces officer. So the first 3 years of my career, I was an infantry officer. And then after going to selection and being selected for special forces, I was a special forces officer for the rest of my career.
Right. So uh, forgive me, just to clarify. So your Army Ranger role, that is not. Does that mean when the description of the image says that you're an Army Ranger, does because I know that's a specialty branch itself, a very
It is.
elite
Rangers aren't a specialty branch. Rangers are a specialty unit.
unit.
So
Okay.
Rangers are infantry branch. The Ranger Regiment or the Rangers is a specialized unit within
Right,
the Army, not a specialized branch.
right.
Special Forces is a specialized branch.
So I found that it's maybe you can clarify that it's actually quite rare for a Green Beret to be dual qualified to be able to partake in the Army Rangers and vice versa as well.
I wouldn't say that it's rare, but it's not in the Special Forces community of officers. It's not rare because a lot of us officers come from the infantry or the Rangers before we go to Special Forces. So within the Special Forces community, it's not rare. Within the Army as a whole,
Gotcha.
it's rare.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks for clarifying that up because, as you'd imagine, information is scarce on the relationship between the two units and the
Yeah.
mechanisms within the military. So I appreciate that.